Hey guys, it's your girl Lady aka Geek XX Chic, and welcome to my review of the latest episode of Loki, which was called the Nexus event, and that one was really fun. I enjoyed that episode a lot for so many reasons. One of the biggest ones being that we're finally peeling away the veneer of the TVA and getting to the nitty-gritty of what's going on here. So in the last episode, one of the first things I said was that despite all the time that we had Loki and Sylvie spend together, Sylvie never really gave up too much about her plan. She didn't really give up too much about her motivation behind why she was going after the TVA. We were able to infer a little bit here and there based on what Loki was able to extrapolate and also based on what we know about Loki. But in the end, she kind of kept her cards close to her vest. But the one thing that they really made sure that they let us know was that Loki and Sylvie had bonded and formed a mutual relationship in that they saw each other. Let's put it that way. They both kind of saw who was really behind all of the bravado and all the layers and walls that they'd put up. But this episode, really, we got to see more of who Sylvie was and, again, how that directly related into Loki and what we've kind of seen of him throughout the Marvel franchise. And I really, really like this storytelling because it's not as direct as just a monologue, you know, like she could have sat down and given us the whole backstory from the beginning, but us being able to see that it was Ramona who actually was the one who apprehended Sylvie, I should say, initially, and from a child. As a child decided that she was a variant. And I guess we don't know, right? To this day, we still don't know what the Nexus event is that the Timekeepers or whoever, since the Timekeepers so far are a fallacy, but digressing, somebody decided that the fact that she was, at least as far as Sylvie knows, the fact maybe that she was born as a woman or a girl at that point, was that the variance? Was that the problem? Was that Loki wasn't a girl? Was what they thought she might become too scary? Clearly she's a lot smarter than any of the previous Lokis, I guess you could say. I shouldn't say that because Loki actually is quite smart, but his pride gets in his way a lot. But anyways, there's a lot of still some questions. Like, I don't think we would have named this episode the Nexus event and then purposefully had Ramona not comment on it unless it's something that's pretty huge to the entire storyline. But still, coming back, the fact that Sylvie was taken as a child, her whole world taken from her. Like, Loki's had it rough, but Sylvie, I think we can agree, had it a lot harder. She literally had nobody. Had to figure out at the tender age of, we don't even know what, she looked to me like she was maybe 10, 11 years old at that point. Had to figure out how to hide from the TVA and spend her entire life doing that and figuring out eventually that hiding in end of the world events was the only way to keep safe. And then thinking about that. Thinking that her whole life, since she was about 10 or 11 years old, has been, or maybe a little bit older than that, watching worlds die. Being there seconds before she knew that whole populations or planets were about to be wiped out. Like, that's really damaging, to say the least. Like, I was like, that would do a number on you psychologically. But one of the things I actually really liked that they showed, it was just a brief moment, but it was huge, was when she was first taken to TVA and you see that she saw that man who was being manhandled by one of the other agents. And the first thing she said was, stop, we have to help him. That empathy, right? Immediate empathy. Which is something that we don't really see from the Loki that we've been exposed to. Like, that Loki has always seemed very unsympathetic, I guess you could say. But the fact that Sylvie was an empath to begin with and eventually kind of became this person, I'm hoping that in a way is it's kind of giving us some insight into who Loki is potentially. That maybe this kid was actually quite, or could have been quite, empathetic and sweet, but because of his fear of being alone, and as we saw in the later part of the episode where he's in the loop, the cosmic loop of being told evil things, that we get a little bit more into who Loki is, you know, why Mobius calls him the pussycat, right? Like, he's just a little guy, and that he is just a lost little boy who doesn't want to be alone and who's obviously felt like an outsider for a long time. So I like that they kind of showed that Sylvie, being this empathetic child who was thrust into a situation that forced her to harden up, it showed us that she isn't all bad, so to speak. And even the fact that she goes and her magic that she taught herself and evolved, which really became this thing of extracting memories and creating a safe place for people so that she can, well, she used it to control them, but really, I think when she started to recognize what the TVA was doing, she was also inevitably setting them free, right? There was still some empathy in what she was doing. And so I think that's just a really nice twist to her character that they're giving us, because, you know, no bad guy is really a bad guy. Although in this case, I think we can probably all agree that, with the exception of the fact that she's pruned quite a few agents, she's not really a bad guy. And so I just really like that they're giving us these pieces of Sylvie, and I think we can extrapolate pieces of Loki through her story, and getting that whole understanding that this is why she's so adamant to take down the TVA, because like she said, that the universe, as she calls it, keeps calling for chaos. Like, it doesn't like this supreme timeline idea. So it keeps producing these Nexus events, or these branches, trying to bring the multiverse back, basically. And the TVA just keeps coming in and trying to fix it or change it. And this is why it keeps happening. This is why variants keep happening, is because there's always these little cracks, you could say, in the perfect veneer that they're trying to create. So I really like that, because it challenges once again what Mobius said in the first episode about how Loki's only purpose is to create pain and suffering and all that other nonsense. Really what Sylvie was saying through that was that, no, we're here for a purpose. We were created because we're supposed to break this cycle of the status quo. We're supposed to come in here and stop this supreme, timeline thing from continuing. The multiverse wants to exist. It needs to exist. And it's going to take people like us to make it happen. I really like that. I like that it's a flip side of what we've heard. It definitely gives Loki a deeper purpose, I think. And again, that a true sense of purpose outside of, what he thought his glorious purpose was. This is his glorious purpose, right? This is it, that the universe keeps creating Lokis, like we saw at the end, to right this universal wrong, which, how much more glorious and grand can it get, right? Like, the Avengers might have saved half the universe, or one of the universes, from Thanos' snap, but Loki might be the one who actually brings back all the worlds that were supposed to exist. Like, that's a pretty huge and glorious purpose, and one that I think even Loki could be proud of if he allows himself to accept that. So, and I really enjoyed as well, I said, like, every time that Loki and Mobius have a conversation, I love it so much, because first of all, Tom and Owen bounce off each other so well. But beyond that, I love that it's always a little chess match that's going on, right? And we heard Mobius say that. He's like, you're playing checkers, I'm playing chess. Like, you think you're smarter than me, you're not. Like, we're literally on the same level here. Even in that conversation where, he lied to Loki about I keep calling her Sophie. When he lied to her about Sylvie to try to figure out if he actually cared about her. And then, of course, Loki trying to play Mobius, which is so silly, because he should know by now that Mobius is very, very sensitive to his BS. Again, they're both poking back and forth at each other to see how much they can trust each other and how much the other is able to pick up on the wit that they're dropping, if that makes sense. I mean, Mobius is always kind of a level above, but I think the big thing with Loki, and again, maybe this is pointing back to the empath side of Loki that he doesn't even realize he has, is that Loki's always checking to see if he can trust someone. He always pushes to see how far someone will get before the trust could break. And even with Mobius, even though he clearly likes Mobius a lot and cares about him, he doesn't trust. He has so many trust issues, which we talked about in episode 1. Once he figured out that, Mobius does care about him and does care about what he thinks, he was able to tell him the truth about the TVA and get Mobius's wheels turning. And then, of course, Mobius was able to put those pieces together, because he's probably always noticed that something was a little off, but didn't have any reason to pursue it because there was nowhere for him to go. But he saw it. Like, nothing goes by Mobius's notice. He noticed that Sister Girl with the buzz cut was starting to have issues ever since she was whammied. He noticed that it just didn't make sense that the other agent suddenly died when she was perfectly healthy. Like, people don't die being confused. That doesn't happen. And also the fact that he saw that Ramona's demeanor and her behavior changed drastically as soon as he started poking for more truth. So I loved it. I love that this is such an intellectual show that's always showing that Mobius is a thinker, that Loki is a thinker, and that all of this is really a mental chess match more than anything else. Outside of that, I think what was really, I kind of touched on it before, but I think it's worth mentioning again, is the fact that Loki was genuinely sad at the idea that Mobius had been pruned. And I think especially because moments before that, we had that beautiful moment of Mobius saying to Loki, you can be whatever you want. Like, you can do whatever you want. You just have to believe you can. I think Loki having that, and that's really all Loki's ever been looking for, right? Because we saw in the last episode, Loki said that his mother said, you can do anything, you can be anything, and how much that meant to him. And then having Mobius mirror that message, like that's all that Loki's ever wanted. That's all he's ever, looked for. So, and then of course we saw at the end, I kept thinking, as soon as they pruned Mobius, I'm like, I don't know. Like half of me is like, it's not like Disney wouldn't kill somebody, but it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like from everything we've done and built Mobius up to be that he would just go out like that. So I'm like, we don't know what this pruning does. And since so much of this show is an illusion in the sense of like what the TVA is, could it be that pruning is also an illusion? Where are they being sent? Where are all the pruned people ending up? Are they going back to their original timeline? Is it just like a dumping ground? Because we noticed that wherever Loki ended up, it was nothing but Lokis that we could see so far. Does that mean all the other people who were pruned go to wherever all the other variants of them end up? Is this all together one planet? Look, I guess what I'm trying to get to is I want to see another Mobius and Loki reunion now that they're both on the same page fully. So anyway, we'll have to see as the series goes on, but this was a great episode. Like so much unfolded with this and we got so much layering in it. Really enjoyed it. What do you guys think? What are your theories? I know there's got to be a lot of them out there. Where do you think all the Lokis are right now? And how do we think it's all going to go down? What's actually running the TVA? What is it? I want to hear theories below. Please let me know. And if you really liked watching this video, I'd really appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up and let me know. And I will see you guys in the next video.